We're live. All right. Jonny, thanks for joining us today, man. Thanks for everyone else for joining us today. We got Jonny Price here, I want to get this right here. You are the VP of Business Development at
Yeah, we'll
Wefunder?
go with it. Yeah.
Okay.
Hi,
Awesome.
thanks for having me on. Good to be here.
Cool. Yeah. And Johnny's talking today. We're talking actually about me this time instead of about Jonny, but we're going to schedule a follow up for those of you who are curious about Wefunder. Johnny's going to come back on. We'll talk all about Wefunder. But today, Johnny's going to talk to me about coaching and how coaching affects the startup world.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I work with a lot of founders in my job at Wefunder. So probably have spoken to 1,000 founders over the last few years. Trying to help them think about raising capital. Wefunder, we're an investment crowdfunding platform, so we help them raise from their community and their fans. And Wefunder's million investors, as well as investors they bring to the table. And so rather than just raising from accredited investors, rich people through Regulation D, they can now raise from anyone through regulation crowdfunding. And so we're kind of advising them on that. And then, the conversation will flow to other things as well. So I feel like I have a pretty good handle on, some of the challenges and stresses of being a startup founder. Of course, Wefunder's a startup as well. I joined a few years into the journey. So the founders started it in 2012. I joined the team in early 2018 and have been here for 3 years. But I run the BD team, as you mentioned, and so have seen the growth come, and there's a lot of good things that come with that, and a lot of challenges. And then before Wefunder, I was like an entrepreneur, I guess. So I founded this pilot program within a nonprofit called Kiva.org. Founded the US team back in 2011, and then ran that for 7 years. So anyway, I've never had a coach. Probably should have had a coach. Probably after this 30 minutes, I will definitely be going to acquire a coach called Dhru. But I was kind of curious to get your take on some questions like who should have a coach and what is a coach for? So let's dive into that if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely, man. First thing, for those folks who know me, I hate the word should, because should makes you wrong, right? So the word could, I try to replace that with could whenever possible. So like could is possibilities, should is like limiting you to one or the other, right? So in terms of could, you could hire a coach absolutely after this. And the things coaches help folks work on is a lot of mindset work. Ultimately, you have actions that are getting you results, right? And you have current actions right now, and you are getting the results you have right now, and they've been what have you been doing over the years, getting your results the same ones over and over again. The only way to truly change your actions in a meaningful way long term are to change your beliefs that influence those actions, and that'll get you different results. Coaches work in that space, in the world of beliefs and values and stories you tell yourself, right? And that's how you change your ultimate actions long term. So you'll have someone who's training on actions, like a sales coach, for example, or a sales trainer. The difference between those two things is the sales coach will delve deeper into beliefs and into what's holding that person back in their actual, like the beliefs underneath the actions. Whereas a sales trainer is going to say, okay, do this action. Repetition in this action is going to get you these results. But if you don't believe it, you won't be able to author your own actions in the future. You'll depend on that person always to tell you what to do.
That's really interesting. So I guess I'd love to come back to something you said there, but maybe to step back, like what type of coach are you, and what are the different, like, is there like a kind of different options that a startup founder might consider?
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a great question. I mean, coaches are in different contexts, right? So my context is generally business and leadership. I also do some executive coaching as well, but there can be multiple different contexts. Ultimately, coaching is in the world of mindset, so it's really whatever area the coach feels that they're most comfortable coaching in. I've coached people in their careers, I've coached people in their lives, I coach people in various contexts, but the contexts I like to focus in are the business context. And that's, again, how your actions and beliefs are affecting your business and getting the results you want to get. That applies in leadership as well. And so if you're talking about leadership, the world of leadership and leading others and inspiring others to do work for you and with you, that's also an area where I help folks to develop leadership presence and understand what's involved in leading others and how to inspire people like that.
Cool. How did you get into this?
Honestly, it's fascination combined with passion, combined with my experience over time. I've been an entrepreneur since I was probably in third grade. I think I first made my first entrepreneurial journey, so to speak. I got in trouble at school because I was selling drawings that I would make. I would draw stuff, and I'd sell them at school for like 50 cents for black and white copies, and color was $1. I got in trouble because I'm not supposed to sell stuff on school property. So I'm like, all right, fine. So start selling on the buses, on the school buses, back and forth. I got in trouble for that.
That's
but
awesome.
Ever since then, I've had that entrepreneurial mindset, right? And so I 9 to 5 never really fit with me, but I was doing it because it was secure, it was safe, right? So I started doing 9 to 5. I was an attorney for a while. That was not really 9 to 5; it was more like 8 to 9. Really.
Yeah.
But I was an attorney for a while as a prosecutor, and then I moved back to DC from Boston, where I went to law school, and I didn't pass the bar in Maryland. So I'm like, all right, what can I do as a career? I started doing IT consulting as a project manager. And as I started growing myself, building skills in management and consulting in that world, and helping others to grow, and I wanted my team to grow. That was my ultimate goal, is to help them to move along in their careers. Whether they stayed with me or not, they were great at what they did, but I want them to be happy and fulfilled in their careers. And that got me along the journey of coaching a lot more. And I didn't know it was coaching at the time. I didn't know what the heck it was. I was project manager. I didn't have a concept of coaching at the time. But I got into actually starting getting into dating coaching as my first foray into coaching. And then that translated to professional development coaching, because they're the same thing, essentially. The only difference is one side you're communicating value and building attraction. The other side you're communicating value and just trying to build trust. And then that moved into leadership and management consulting and training and coaching in that world, in the leadership world. And then I got certified by Georgetown, and I got certified by the ICF. And, here I am. All that experience and whatever I've done over the years in training has kind of culminated in what I'm doing right now.
Awesome. ICF is International Coaching Foundation.
Federation. International Coach Federation.
So close.
Almost. Very close. Very close.
Okay, so going back to, that's super helpful context. So going back to what you said earlier, coaching is about changing people's beliefs. And then if you change their beliefs, then the actions will follow from that. Do you have a good example of where you've worked with, a startup founder, let's say, and or someone running a sales team or whatever it is, and like where they were kind of maybe knocking their head up against a brick wall, but then actually changing their belief system caused them to get this awesome unlock?
Absolutely. Yeah. So there's one guy I was working with a couple of years ago, and his whole thing was he really wanted to build a company that meant something to him, but he didn't want to give up equity, right? So he's like, I don't want to give up equity. He also didn't want to spend any money though, right? And so he's like, he's kind of torn. He's not. He has money set aside for the business and that kind of thing, but he's only building in the direction he's building in, right? Mm-hmm. And so he wanted to conserve money at all costs. So he's doing everything himself. Like he's building his website himself. He's trying to do his marketing himself, and he's spending inordinate amounts of time learning, reading, watching YouTube videos about marketing, about website building, about all these kind of things. He's trying to do it all himself, and he was just burnt out completely. And so he had a belief in it. And when I talked with him, we worked together for a while. He had this belief in his head that he couldn't spend money. He had to be the expert on everything himself, on his entire business. He couldn't let anyone else do something for him, because then they might own part of the business. Even if it wasn't legally, they'd still own, he would really be giving up part of the business. Mm-hmm. So getting him out of that took a little work. But once we got him out of that mindset of like being able to give up some control, control was another thing he had an issue with, but giving up some control of that and being able to outsource to people who were experts in the field, who he could trust to do this work for him, like building a website, like marketing, like understanding how to actually structure the business the way he wanted to do it. That was immensely freeing for him. And suddenly he was like, wait, this whole world of outsourcing, I was never open to it before. Right? I never thought about it before, and because he thought about it, but he rejected it. Right. He didn't think it was something that he wanted to do, because he felt like he was a control freak. It was his baby. Right. He wanted to raise his baby the way he wanted to raise it. Right. Mm-hmm. And he didn't want anyone else's influence in this. And ultimately, when he let go of that, he was able to build it. I mean, the company basically went through the roof at that point, because he got people in place who were doing what they were doing. He got his time free to actually make network and connections, talk to folks who could actually help grow his business. And then he was a lot freer.
That's awesome. How do you sell? I mean, maybe that's not the right word, but like, what's the value proposition of coaching? It's probably quite a dumb question. It's like so obvious what the answer is, but if someone's listening and they're like, should I get a coach? Like, what would you say to, say, wow, yeah, this can be like incredibly, valuable?
Yeah. First thing I'll say is not say should, right? But after that, yeah, I mean, I think coaching is always helpful for folks, because it helps you get out of the headspace you're in, whatever headspace you're in. Even if you're already in a good space, it can help you get into a better space, because you can always see more of the world, and you're never hurt by taking in more information, by taking in more possibilities for yourself. The world of coaching lives in the world of the unknown unknowns, right? You have the known knowns, you have the known unknowns, and then the rest of the world is like 99.99% of the world is what you don't know. And coaching lives in that world. It's like, okay, let's create your awareness around what you can do and help people understand, here's all these things you didn't know existed before. So you didn't even know you didn't know them, right? How can we take those things now and put them into your paradigm of the world, and help you be more effective at what you're doing, make this company or this business or whatever you have more effective for yourself. So in terms of opening doors, opening possibilities, it's one of the best things you can do for yourself. And the return on investment question, it's hard to quantify, but ultimately you're going to be the progress you make with a coach, I would say in 6 months, a good coach, you'll probably make on your own eventually, but that'll probably take you 6 years. You know what I mean? It accelerates progress. It accelerates growth, accelerates awareness to a point where, if you're not aware of a problem, you can't fix it, right? If you're not aware of it doesn't have to be a problem, but if you're not even aware of an opportunity, you can't take advantage of that, right?
So one question I have, you mentioned unknown unknowns. Like, I think, like, I know I'm like a very disorganized person, right? So if you as a coach could help me, like, I don't know what the right like way of saying this is, but like change my beliefs to make me more organized, like that would be amazing. But like, firstly, I don't know, is that a good example? And then secondly, I know I am disorganized, right? And it's like I want to get better. Maybe I don't want it enough to actually do it. But like, can you, like, does that apply? Because that's like, it feels to me like that's a known. Well, that's a known. It's just like I'm not very good at it.
No, that's a great example.
Like, yeah.
So that's a symptom, right? So the symptoms, and then there's a core. There's what's underneath that, right? What's the root cause of that? And so the question I would ask you, Jonny, is what benefit are you getting out of being disorganized right now? Because even if you may not think there's a benefit, there's a perceived benefit, whether it's reality or not, right? So what benefit are you getting?
Yeah, that's true. It's probably, like, let's say I'm often late for calls, right? Because I'm like finishing another call and like, oh, it's a really good like conversation, and I'm really like bonding with this founder, and I don't want to like cut that conversation off. And so then it's like, oh, just like take an extra few minutes before like wrapping that call to go to the next one. So I guess that is like, there's maybe kind of I don't know if I'm saying I'm making a deliberate trade-off, but if you frame the question in that way, it's like, there probably is some value from me being late to this next call.
Yeah. So then that's the value. That's the benefit you're getting right now. Now, what's the cost? What are you losing?
Making a bad first impression on the next call, right, for being late to it.
Okay. And so right now, for what you're saying is, and again, there's not a wrong answer. There's nothing wrong with that. It's for yourself. Each person has their own values and their own things that apply to them, right? So for you, that trade-off right now is worth it, right?
So I guess another part of what my question was getting at is that, like, I feel like, at least for me, sometimes I'm not deliberately making those trade-offs. The trade-offs are kind of, I'm just like screwing up, like I don't know if you abide by Myers-Briggs, but I am an ENFP on Myers-Briggs. And so, very kind of reactive and spontaneous, and, life happens to me versus me imposing my order on the world. So I guess that's part of the point I was making, is that, like, let's say I didn't think there was any value in me being late. I just like am disorganized and tend to be impunctual, and so kind of, do you see what I'm getting at?
Yeah, and that's where the unknown is, because there is still a value there, because you wouldn't do it otherwise, right? There's still, even if it's not a real value, it's a perceived value. So at some level, and that would be one of the situations you would talk deeper about and kind of delve a little deeper. But ultimately, there is a perceived value you're getting, right, in your head, in your unconscious even, where you think there's a value to you being late, or to you being disorganized, right, of whatever that is for you. And when you uncover that,
so that's kind of counterintuitive with what I would have thought, which is like, I might, like, I'm being irrational, right? Like, I don't, if I could really jot down all the pros and cons on both sides of the ledger, like, the cons would massively outweigh the pros. And I'm not like taking that course of action, i.e. being late to the next call, because like even subconsciously there's like a sophisticated cost benefit equation going on in my head, I'm just like screwing up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but see, what your definition of screwing up is, if it was just screwing up, if there was nothing, you would have fixed that by now, right? So there's something that makes it consistently doing it. It's a behavior that's innate in you right now. That's allowing you to make a pattern, right? Patterns don't come up by accident, right? Patterns come from something. So that something for you is you being able, you saying to yourself, not consciously. It's probably something that's happened over time, where you're saying to yourself, okay, subconsciously you're saying, okay, I'm going to be late because I have to get this and this done or whatever. I want to wait till the last minute, or I'll get this done whenever I get it done. And you're for whatever reason end up being late or end up being disorganized. You're getting
That's
a perceived
empowering. I feel like it's quite an empowering paradigm. It's like, you know, you have the agency. If you are doing things in this way, it is because you are making a deliberate choice to do that, rather than, you know, my kind of starting out point, which is maybe, oh, you're kind of a victim of your failings or circumstances or whatever. But cool, that's interesting. That's also enough about me. So, who are your typical clients, and what type of people are a good fit to, you know, engage a coach like you?
Well, based on our 5-second conversation just now, you would be probably a good client for me in that situation, because we can talk about that. But folks like that, right? Folks who think that they know what they need to be, what they should be doing, right? Again, I use that word, but what they want to be doing, I should say, right? Versus what they're doing right now, or what they think they want to be doing, right? They don't even know why they're doing these certain actions right now. I typically use the example of weight loss, for example, right? It's very obvious what you need to do to get to lose weight, unless it's a medical situation. That's an exception, right? Let's not talk about that. But in general, there's very simple things, steps you need to go through.
Weight loss is a great example, actually, of what I'm talking about, right? Because it's like, if you ask someone the pros and cons, the cost benefit, obviously they're going to be like, no, like, you know. But so how do you talk me through that example?
Yeah, for that example, you know that you got to eat healthy, you got to work out, you got to be active relatively, you know, that kind of thing, right? You know, those general rules for yourself, but you're not doing that. Why not? And when you delve deeper, for myself, when I did this exercise for myself a couple of years ago, for me, what I realized was I equated eating badly with enjoying my food. And I equated enjoying my food and eating. If I didn't enjoy my food, if I ate well, if I ate properly and ate healthily, I would not enjoy my food. And two, I would just be that person who just eats just for nothing but nutrition. And I would hate my life in terms of, because I love food, right? And so as someone who enjoys food, if I lose that, then I lose part of my enjoyment in life. But when you realize that, yeah, you can actually still enjoy your food and eat relatively healthily, right? You can also have those cheat meals once in a while and figure out what makes sense for you, figure out what kind of balance makes sense for you authentically as a person. And that's why a lot of these fad diets don't work, because they don't appeal to the underlying issue. And I think some of them are by design that way. But the underlying issue is, again, that belief, right? The belief, and it's not always, it's 99% of the time not a real logical belief, right? It's a fallacy. It's like, oh, if I eat healthy, I will not enjoy my food. Those two things are not the same.
So in your example, how did you fix that? Did you basically say, actually, I can eat well and eat healthily and like eat delicious food and kind of have fun with my food? Was that how you solved it in your situation?
Yeah, I just found examples of things. I created new rules for myself. One, the rule is the food has to be delicious, has to be something I enjoy, right? Or at least possibility to enjoy it. And two, it has to be relatively healthy. And so I started applying everything I did to those rules, and I started enjoying food and eating relatively healthy, right? So and every now and then I still have that cheat meal. I still eat chocolate. I love chocolate and sweets. So, but at the end of the day, you create these new rules for yourself that understand, okay, I had originally equated these two things that are not the same. And you realize that, and that living to that underlying value will allow you to do that more effectively.
That's cool. Do you engage with different clients, founders, business leaders? And some people, it's like, oh yeah, you're probably good. Like you don't even really need a coach, or like on that end of the spectrum. And then other people are like, oh my goodness, like get out your checkbook, because we are gonna be working together for the next 10 years, like multiple sessions a day. You need a lot of work, my friend. Is that like, or is it like, everyone has their challenges and everyone kind of can benefit from a coach, kind of everyone's kind of in the middle?
What's funny is the people who need the coach the most are the ones who are never going to hire one. honestly, because honestly, coaching is about self-awareness, right? It's literally about at its core, it's about self-awareness, right? The more you can create a self-awareness about yourself, the more you can identify areas you want to grow and grow effectively.
Mm-hmm.
And the people who need the coach the most are the ones who will refuse to engage in self-awareness activities.
Oh, interesting.
Right?
Yeah, I see.
And so, but they're also not going to be good clients because they're not going to want to do the work. So to your question, yeah, there's some people where I'm like, hey, they're doing well. Even if you're doing really well, you can still use the self-awareness, and no one's completely aware of themselves and even the small things, right? And it's again, likening it to weight loss. That first 50 pounds or 30 pounds or whatever is going to be the easiest to lose. When it gets down to that last 1 or 2 or 3 pounds, that's where it's the hardest to lose that. And those high achievers can make that extra leap by working with a coach. And those folks who are just investing in that time and just starting down that journey will also be able to make those kind of leaps.
When you say do the work, do you mean like do the kind of intellectual engagement work of like the conversation with you, or do you mean like you give them like a homework and they got to go away and really think about it, or is it like actual work, like exercise for 20 minutes every day, that kind of work?
It's kind of a mixture, honestly. I'll be honest. Some of it's like deep conversations. I wouldn't say intellectual. I'd say more. Some of them can be very emotional.
Yeah,
right?
soul searching maybe.
Yeah, a lot of soul searching, a lot of deep self-awareness work, and it sometimes can be very, very uncomfortable, honestly, right? And it can be draining. Energetically, it's very, very draining. But the homework time stuff, it's like very much observations, journaling, like a lot of activities is just like say, okay, keep an eye on this behavior or these set of behaviors and see how they impact you or see how you react to these kind of things. The other thing is like talking about like journaling is like self-awareness. Really explore how you felt about X, Y, and Z, or how you respond to this kind of thing, and what goes through your head, what goes through your body, how do you respond. So that's kind of what I mean by the work. But the people who, like I said, are not in that self-awareness journey, who don't have an interest in that, are the ones who are not going to be like, oh, I'm totally fine. It's everyone else. Everyone else is the problem. I'm sure you've met people like this who are like, oh, I have the worst employees. These employees are always the problem. I'm fine. They're the problem 100%. And I can guarantee you no one's 100% the problem.
What does a typical engagement look like?
So typically for me, I sign folks up for 3-month minimum, but it's typically an engagement's like 6 months to a year. And if folks want to work with me, it's the 3 months upfront that's required, and after that they can go to month, or they can switch to a longer term if they like. But the 3 months is just to give coaching actually a try and make sure it works properly with them, and that they have a clear understanding of what it looks like. That first session is really a lot of getting to know the person, understanding who they are, and them understanding me as well. I always tell folks it's really about fit with a coach. If you don't fit, you can talk about the best coach in the world. Tony Robbins, for example, right? He can't coach anyone in the world, right? A one-on-one situation. In group situations is different, right? When you're having that one-on-one intimate conversation, not everyone's going to be a good fit with Tony Robbins, and vice versa, right? There are people who are not going to feel comfortable with that person, and not everyone's a good fit for me either, right? There's some folks who I would refer out to another colleague who just might be a better fit for them. So that initial conversations, for me, the initial conversation is always free, just to talk about coaching and how that might really help them. Then we jump into that 3-month agreement, and then after that point, if they want to go forward and keep continuing, which I'd say 90% of people do, then we talk about if they want to renew for 3 months or 6 months or a year or that kind of thing.
Cool. What other questions should I be asking here? This is awesome.
Oh, thanks, man. No, I mean, the other thing that I would mention, I don't know if, but there are also assessments, like leadership assessments and personality assessments. You mentioned the MBTI being one of them. I think the danger with the MBTI is that they don't necessarily control how people interpret it. So people like for yourself, if you're reading it and you're saying, okay, I am this thing, it's not so much what you are as much as what your tendency is, right? And that's the case with any assessment. It's you tend towards these behaviors. They're not defining you. Right. And with leadership assessments, I'm certified in 2 different ones, and then an organizational one as well. The whole idea is about leadership and these different dimensions of leadership, and it's really powerful. Like the Hogan assessment is a collection of 3 different assessments, and by the way, leadership assessments in general are a great way to kick off an engagement with a coach, because it starts somewhere that's like concrete. If you don't already have an idea of where you want to start, it's a great way to start that self-awareness journey and say, okay, where am I right now? What's the map of where I want to be? And let me see how I'm using my energy right now. And then I can jump into that and figure out where I want to target to invest energy in growing myself future. So the Hogan assessments is a great way to start that. The Leadership Circle 360 is amazing. And then the third one that I'm certified in is called the IDI, the Intercultural Development Inventory, which is used for DEI work primarily right now, but it's also just in general at its core, it's a great conflict resolution type, or how do you deal with conflict and conflicting ideas assessment.
Very cool, man. Well, this has been super eye-opening for me. I think yeah, it's cool to just hear some tangible examples of how you've helped people, and I love that framework of the changing people's beliefs, which then kind of cascades down to their actions. Seems like a very empowering framework. So yeah, let's talk about me being your next client here.
Yeah, I appreciate it, dude. That sounds awesome. But yeah,
Cool.
thanks so much for joining me. And dude, we'll do a follow-up interview. We'll talk about you and Wefunder and all your experience, because I think folks would benefit from your story, and talk about what Wefunder does and how it benefits the startup community, because I think it's awesome.
Would love to. Yeah, we're having a lot of fun trying to democratize investing in startups, letting anyone invest for $100, anyone be an angel investor, not just rich people. And as a result, getting more capital flow into founders, especially women, founders of color. Right now, 77% of VC goes to 3 states: California, New York, and Massachusetts. So yeah, we hope our kind of democratic model can try to change some of those statistics. We're having a lot of fun. So yeah, would love to do that.
That sounds awesome, man. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for doing this. I really appreciate it, dude. We'll catch up again soon. But for those of you watching, hit the like button if you like this video. Hit subscribe. Share this video if it's valuable for somebody. And yeah, thanks for joining us. Take care. See you guys next time. Thanks, Johnny.